guys, welcome back to Waggle Friends English. It has been a minute.
Yes, it has been a while, and we're going to kick it off back with another phrasal verb video for you guys, specifically focused on technology.
We live in a digital age, so we have a lot of these phrasal verbs that can be used in physical situations, but also in digital situations. However, obviously that meaning cannot translate directly. Sometimes you have some that are very confusing, some phrasal verbs that have been designed just for the digital age, but then you also have things that have been designed for physical things, or they mean something completely different. So this is going to be a little bit complicated. We have 31 for you today.
And don't worry, we'll let you know when these things get a little confusing, sometimes when they have a more physical meaning or a more digital meaning.
So the first one today we're going to talk about is back up.
Like back up your files on your computer.
Usually backing up has a physical meaning of literally reversing your car or just stepping backwards without really looking, like step back from the line, back up from the line.
Or it can be a noun, backup.
Oh, a backup.
Yeah, like, so if I'm nervous to do something, maybe I say, hey, I need some backup. Can you go with me? But
Right.
Backing up your files is where you take important files that are on your computer, documents, forms, something like that, and then you copy them to another location so that you can have them just in case something goes wrong with your computer.
Like a flash drive or an external hard drive.
Or a cloud or something like that.
Yeah, very, very important.
The next one is a little weird. It's be on or is on. So I can say the computer is on.
Like to turn on, but to be on your computer is to actually be sitting working on your computer. So you can be on your laptop, you can be on a computer. You could also, could you be on TV? Okay, to be on TV means you are actually in the television program, like you're on the set of the TV program. So if you're like in a game show or something. So you can't sit and be on the TV at home. If you're going to be on TV, it means you're there.
Being on your computer can mean sitting down in front of your computer.
Right.
Or it can mean that there is electricity currently flowing through the computer and it is turned on or is on.
Yeah, you can say that you like to be on YouTube, but if you say that to an English speaker, they're going to think that you have a YouTube channel. If you're watching it, it probably means that to be on means you're part of the storyline, the plot, you're on the set of the film.
I think part of this also comes from the idea of a platform. So YouTube is a platform that people can then show themselves off. And so if you're on YouTube, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're using YouTube. It means that you're on that stage, on that platform.
It'd be the same thing with a podcast.
Yes.
To be on a podcast means you're part of the show. You're on the show. That one's a pretty tricky one. You should listen for it, though, because it's super common.
Another one is to leave on or to have on. This is talking about a device. Like, why did you leave the computer on?
Yeah, or to have the TV on while you're cooking dinner or something. We do this a lot with devices. We'll do this with radio. You can have the radio on, or you can leave the computer on, or have the computer on all the time. Normally we would say leave the computer on, though.
Yeah.
I think it's because computers are very like physical things. You've got to be there to do something with it.
It's like it's working, but you're doing nothing to do that thing. So it's like this thing is working in the background with nobody manning it or controlling it or whatever.
Yeah. So another one is to boot up. And this one's a little bit older. We use it for far more powerful machines or older machines. We'll say that they have a boot up time, which means it might take a while for them to actually turn on. This is like the dinosaurs of computers back in the day. We'd say they boot up. We don't really say that now. We just say to turn on because it's pretty instantaneous. Like you might have to wait like 30 seconds maybe. So it's not very common anymore, but to boot up is something that you might hear at work, in particular if you have a lot of large computers to work with. We wouldn't say to boot up a truck, but it has to be a computer.
The next one is double as, which is kind of a strange one for some of you, but double as means that you take this thing over here and this thing over here and you combine it together. So for example, this pen doubles as a stylus and a pen.
So we have this tip right here, so you can use it on an iPad or something like that, but it's also a pen. So it doubles as a pen. Technology often doubles as many things. Maybe you have a personal laptop that doubles as your freelance work computer, or you have headphones that double as microphone as well. Double as is something that applies across more than just technology, but we use it a lot in technology.
The next one is a little bit complicated. It's to fit something with normally software or some technology.
And basically it means to upgrade it to the point or to give it the components it needs to do a job really well. So it's been fitted with, usually somebody might say state-of-the-art software to run our business's books or to run this multifaceted vendor website. We would say fitted with to say that it's got all the accessories it needs to make it a very powerful, useful tool. However, we can do this also with physical tools. We can have hand drill fitted with different things. Usually this means something to do with accessories added to it. Clothes can be fitted to you. Like that means somebody like a tailor works on your clothes to make them fit to you, but to fit something with is to make a tool better. So for example, we have a kitchen mixer. We have outfitted it. We have fitted it with different accessories that helps us to grate cheese really quickly. It helps us to knead bread dough and cookie dough and all kinds of things. It has different accessories that it's been fitted with to make it a more useful and versatile tool. You can do the same with software and computers.
However, when some things, some tools, some computers break, we sometimes call that freeze up. Because sometimes the computer or the screen just stops working all of a sudden. Like if your internet is too slow or your internet drops, then the screen might freeze up and say that, hold on, something's not responding properly.
It's a bummer.
The application froze up or your computer froze up.
Nobody likes it when their computer freezes up. Anything can freeze up. Usually it's because of an update conflict or something like that. A website can freeze up. We can say that. We can also say the database froze up. So this applies to lots of technologies. We don't really say like water hoses or water faucets freeze up. We say they just freeze. So this must be mostly just a digital one.
Another one is to charge up your phone or computer or laptop or anything that has a battery. You have to charge it up, make it have full battery, 100%.
But this one's tricky, and for you advanced learners out there, there is a difference in English when we say to charge up versus to charge something. When I say that I need to charge up my phone, I'm emphasizing the fact that it really needs a charge. But if I just say I need to charge my phone, then it sounds like a run-of-the-mill thing. So sometimes we use emphasizers. We create phrasal verbs with up in order to emphasize something that needs to be done. This is something to keep an eye on and keep your ears sharp for. We'll probably have a video about this eventually.
When something crashes or when something breaks, especially when it comes from the server side, we would say it went down or it goes down.
Yeah, this is always a sad day. If you're playing a game and the server goes down, the game is gone. But more importantly, at work, if you have a work server, a dedicated server to the company, and the server goes down, that can be a very dangerous situation for all the data that could be lost, but it could also be a very unfortunate situation for other things. Maybe it's something small, like that people are not able to do their work for the day, but it could also be something much bigger and more serious, like there is a data breach. We can also say, for physical things, we can say that an airplane has gone down. It means that it's crashed. We could say this for anything that flies in the air. We could say a ship went down or a ship goes down, something like that. But we also use it when we're driving. If we're driving north to south or from the top of a mountain or a higher elevation to a lower elevation, we'll also say we go down the mountain or we're driving down south. It's important to know kind of the context around to understand how to use this one.
Another one is goes off. For example, if you have automatic lights and you're out of the room for a time, then the lights will go off, meaning to be turned off.
Another one that we do is to keep up. And it means to keep up to date, to keep up with updates that are happening, software things, improvements in technology. To keep up can be something that for you, you're keeping up with someone physically. It could also be keeping up with somebody in terms of news or in history. But it's also to keep up with things like updates on the computer or keeping up with what's new on the website or what's new in the company. You would use keep up a lot in a digital situation as well.
And also hardware too. A lot of times in technology, things get so outdated so quickly that if you're really trying to get the best of the best, you have to constantly be keeping your technology up to date.
Which could also mean maintenance. Maybe it means that you have to rotate out the graphics card or something like that to keep your machine up to date.
One thing that even actually our children know how to do is to zoom in to something or zoom out to something. And this is normally on a phone or an iPad, but it can be on a computer as well, where you zoom in to get a closer look at something, or you want to zoom out and get a more bird's eye view.
A synonym to this is to scroll in. So you can scroll closer, you can scroll further back, you can scroll up the page, down the page, but to zoom in You can scroll into the image or you can scroll closer to the image.
Another one is to plug in or plug into. So if you have a USB or a flash drive, you have to plug that into the computer in order for it to be able to talk to each other.
But it's not just that either. You can also plug in to get new updates on your website. So if you build websites for a living or you've done this before, then you know if you use WordPress, you have plugins. As a noun, that are pieces of software designed to do a certain function, and you can plug it into your website. You just download it to your website, turn it on, activate it. It adds this function to your website.
So you can plug in a plugin.
Yes, you can. You can literally plug in a plugin.
Something that's more along the lines of HR or something like on a call center, you would say, put me through to the manager or to your director or to something like that. The reason why it's on our Phrasal Verbs of Technology is because a lot of times when you have issues with technology, you have to go kind of higher up pretty quickly if you know any sort of information related to servers or hosting or something like this.
Like the frontline support people, it's not their job to actually fix a deeper issue. So you would say, can you please put me through to a specialist on virtual private server network, for example. You can do that and they would be able to go in there and pass you along or put you through to a specialist.
Another one that is a really basic one that even our kids know now is to turn up or to turn down the volume, making it louder or softer or quieter.
You can also do this with brightness on your screen. You can turn up or down the brightness.
So once you are done with your computer and your session, what you always should do is you should power off, power down, or shut down your machine.
We could also say to turn off the machine. That also works, but I think that's a little bit more modern now that we can shut things down a lot faster than we used to. It's not like we have to boot up anymore. Another thing you can do is to try out a program or a plugin on your website or something like this. You could try something out. This can also be called a trial period, but that's a noun, not a phrasal verb. You could try out a particular piece of software or you could try out a device to see how well you like it.
And this has a actually athletic, physical meaning to it. You can go to a tryout. And a tryout is a time where you show off your skills so that you can show the athletic team or the coach that you are qualified to be on the team.
This is an old one. You can tune in or out of something. So to tune into a radio station, to tune into a podcast or something like that, you can do that. You can also tune out, as in like you just shut off and stop listening. Yeah, spacey over here. We call that tuning out. But you can also do that with technology.
Not to be confusing at all, tune up kind of has more of a mechanical feel to it. Kind of like the idea of keep up with that we talked about earlier is the idea of tuning up your car, which means to do the kind of the same thing for technology, but to do that with the mechanical side of things like cars or tractors or something like that.
And you can do this to anything. You can do it to digital things, you can do it to websites, you can do all kinds of things, but to tune up. It comes from an older term. It is an older phrase, but if you have an older boss, they're probably going to use it. You can also say that you're tuning up a piano, you're tuning up a computer, you're updating hardware is the idea.
One that everybody should be familiar with in this internet world is the phrasal verb pop up.
Yeah, so these could be ads that just pop up on the screen and we call them a pop-up as a noun, but we call the verb of them just showing up all of a sudden in your screen, in your face. We say that is popping up.
When you have to maybe hire a mechanic or whether you are hiring somebody to work on your computer or servers, a lot of times they have to take apart the machine in order to fix it. And that is the phrasal verb take apart.
Right. We also put it together. Whenever you buy a new device, you can set it up. So set up something, set up a computer. You can also set up a website. You can say make a website, but we tend to say set up a website.
Another thing you could say is something quit on me. Or if it's very informal, you could say something died on me.
So something that dies all the time, like your phone, maybe you have an older phone and the battery is just terrible, so it dies multiple times a day. You could say that it died on you. We tend to say that when we're with friends or family. If it's something that tends to die a lot on us, it's like, my phone died, or my phone died on me. But with a computer, we tend to say my computer quit on me. But you can also say it died on me if it's very informal. I wouldn't announce this at work, by the way. This is not like a work term. It's a very friendly term. But to say that my computer quit on me, that's okay to say at work.
One that's a very archaic phrasal verb that we don't use very much now is to wind up the machine. You could do that with a watch. Sometimes they used it back in the day with actual big clock, we'd have to wind them up so they have this spring that would help the weight go back and forth.
Right.
Nowadays, with normal computers, we don't really do that very much.
Some people use winding up, kind of like gearing up. We've talked about gearing up before on this channel, but gearing up is like you're getting ready for something.
Yeah.
We also say we're winding up for a crazy weekend or something like that. It's got this idea, there's a multi-step process and things have to be prepared in order for it to happen. So it has a range of meanings.
We've already talked about how batteries can sometimes quit on you. Another way to say this is that you can run down the battery. So parents have often told their kids, don't do X because it runs down the battery. Normally it's something that is really heavy. It takes a lot of processing power.
A game.
Or for some reason, recipe websites, if you believe it or not, they run down the battery really quickly.
It's all the ads.
All the pop-up ads.
So timeout is another phrase that we use often in the digital world, but we also use it a lot in the physical world. If something times out, you're just running out of time.
Or sometimes we use this even with parenting, where we say with our kids, you have to go to timeout, a place, a noun, because you hit your sister or something like that.
Timeout screen time. Some people set a timer on their screen so that they're not on their phone too much. We'd say that their timed out. Anytime you're working with a website that has like a membership feature, you've got sign in, log in, sign up, log out, sign out, log out, or log out of. So anytime you have an account online, which is really common these days with your bank and your utilities and your school, online school and stuff like this, then you're going to have to log in, log out. You're going to have to sign in, sign out. Those are just completely equal in meaning. So we sign into, we log into, we sign out of, and we log out of. Of for the negative, for leaving, but then to for getting into it.
Some things you can do in order to not hear as many ads is you can opt out of some sort of marketing.
So whenever you sign up for something or you sign into something, sometimes you'll see this little checkbox that opts you into a newsletter or opts you into updates or it opts you into automatic text messages. Okay, you can opt out of those things after you've been signed up automatically, or you can go in there and you can say, I just don't want them to start with. So we call this opting in or opting out.
Speaking of passwords and signing into things, you can key in the password takes you to get to the thing.
Ooh, that's an old one. That's like when you have like buttons on a password.
Like an actual like keyboard. Where psh, 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 psh.
Yeah. An unfortunate negative is something like when somebody hacks into your website or they hack into your social media account or they hack into your bank account. This is not good. So hacking in is somebody who's a thief. They're coming to steal your identity, some information, some money, whatever they can get. This happens when somebody on a computer somewhere else goes through the internet and they hack into some of your online accounts.
All right, guys. So that's all of the phrasal verbs that we could put together right now for Phrasal Verbs of Technology. What we want you guys to do is to try to keep your eyes open for these. So for example, maybe when you're signing into your school or something like that, see if you can see a sign that says, keep me signed in.
Definitely keep your eyes and ears open. Make sure you are looking into this and use them. Don't just watch this video and go on your merry way. That's not how you learn these things. Write them down, go back through and listen again if you need to, but then apply them. Whatever else you do on the internet today or on your phone today or on your car today, any kind of technology, make sure that you are applying these phrasal verbs so that you get them.
Keep looking out for our follow-up video where we will use these phrasal verbs in a natural conversation. And we will catch you on the next one.
Bye.